Hello and welcome to After the Bell Rings, a podcast about controversial issues that affect us as high schoolers. We're your hosts, Yadashan.
Shritan.
And Felicia Fancy Bottom. No, I'm joking. My name is Rishi. Okay, that was kind of cringy, bro.
Bro, that's
Yeah,
what I'm
that's
saying. But you decided that. Anyways, let's continue.
All right. Here we'll be uploading episodes every 2 weeks, and each episode will be about a different topic that is significant to us. Our hope is to create a rich community revolving around the changing nature of high schools and the problems that students have to deal with.
Apart from the first episode, we will begin each episode with viewer questions. If we receive any, we'll do our best to give you our opinion regarding the topic. All right. Without further ado, let's jump right into today's episode.
All right. If you guys don't mind, I'd like to first talk about College Board, and this is from my own experience, really. I recently took the SAT, which is, if you don't know, a College Board like college entrance exam, really. And it's supposed to be like this fair, standardized exam that the College Board administers like pretty much every spring, fall. And I took it 2 times, like within the 2 previous months. The first test that I took ended up being really hard.
Hold on. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we never introduced our topic for this week. So, before we continue that, just to put a pause on that. So what we're going to be discussing this time is the education system and the issues that we have with it. The reason we're discussing this is because most of the time we see things education system related. It's from the point of view of people who are past the education system. And that doesn't really make sense to us. After all, if you wanted information on the education system, it only makes sense that you ask people who are currently in the education system. So that's why we feel we are qualified to speak on this topic, at least from our point of view as juniors in high school. Sorry for interrupting. You can continue now.
All right. Anyway, I was talking about basically how the first SAT test that I took ended up being extremely hard. And I didn't do as well as I thought I would on it. But the second test that I ended up paying for as well ended up being extremely easy, at least in the math wise. And it was a clear difference whether or not the College Board admits it or not. And so I think that I feel like it's not really a fair representation of the test taker's abilities, considering that there's so much variation between each test, right? I mean, the first test had, I'd say, a lot more Algebra 2 problems, whereas the second test would have some very basic Algebra 1 problem. I remember a specific problem involving just finding a slope of a line, which for a high schooler should be pretty easy. So I think it's pretty unfair in my opinion.
I guess what you're trying to say here is that, like, I mean, for the way I see it, the taking the test multiple times only really benefits the College Board, right? Because
Yep. Mm-hmm.
whether it's an SAT or an AP exam, taking the test costs money, and well, it's kind of expensive, to put it lightly. And having to take it multiple times might not even be feasible for some people, right? Not everyone is in the same boat when it comes to financial situation. And not to mention that stuff like AP exams and SAT and ACT they're basically required, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you don't
Yeah.
really have if you're trying to go to college, you don't really have an option to take it or not. I mean, right now they're saying it's optional because of COVID and things. But
A few
for
years
the
down the
most,
line,
yeah, for the most part, you're it's not really an option. You've got to put the money down, and not everyone has those kind of opportunities. Everyone's got a different situation going on, and like forcing people to, well, it's not forcing, but basically
really incentivizing.
incentivized. It's
Yeah.
heavily incentivized to take it, well, multiple times. And for something that's basically required, I don't know if that's the direction that the testing system should be moving towards.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because there's also like another interesting angle on that, considering AP exams, like you said. correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe to register for an AP exam, you have to pay $100 for each exam that you're going to take.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, yeah. So the thing is, there's so much variation with each, like the instruction of each student, right, in an AP class. And this is very particularly true for our school. We go to Couple High School, by the way, but basically, there are some teachers who might teach an AP subject very well, and there are some teachers that don't really care about the content absorption of a student. And I just feel like that really creates some schisms in like the AP scores that the students end up getting. I feel like they're not getting enough bang for their buck, right? Because some students might just end up having a really bad teacher, and they have to compensate with that, and sometimes they're not able to. And so I feel like that's just it's the test doesn't really account for that. To be honest, this is really what I'm trying to say.
Well, that's there, but I think that in a way, College Board is not really, at least in my personal opinion. I'm not trying to demean College Board or anything, but what I interpret it is as, um, I almost feel like they're just trying to invest in the money you pay. Cause sure, you're allowed to refuse payment for College Board exams, like AP exams or maybe even the SAT, but they raise the prices so high, and if you don't take it, there's, in my opinion, there's a likely chance that you won't end up as good as you would like to be in the future. So in that way, College Board is basically forcing you, well, kind of forcing you to pay for the money, and just, I don't know why. I don't see a real reason to make the prices so high. Not really everyone is that financially stable, especially in the US. So I think that they're just doing that. They're kind of a little bit of selfishness is what I see on that side of them. But that's just my opinion.
I mean, if we're talking about the way it's like the way money is involved in the education system, then I mean, we're pointing our fingers at College Board right now, but let's be fair, it's not just College Board, right? Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
everyone knows about the struggles that people go through with student loans once they're done with college. I know that Shritan and Rishi are planning to go into medical school, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
definitely not cheap at all.
Nah.
So like you're anyways gonna make people are like they save up their entire lives just to attend a good school. Like their parents save up for them, and they do the best of their ability to. I say they, but I really mean we. Like we're doing the best of our
Yeah,
ability to get into,
the
the
college we
school that
want.
we want.
Yep.
And I mean, having a price tag on that, like, can you like
Hmm.
think about how many Einsteins that we missed out on because they couldn't afford to move to the school that they wanted to go to. Think about how
Yeah.
many people were so bright, they did excelled in school, and then they saw a price tag on their school, and they realized they couldn't accept that. Maybe it'd be too much of a burden on them or their families to accept that offer. I mean, there are opportunities to lessen that, I will admit, such as scholarships. Scholarships play a huge role in the majority of students that are going to attend college, and that does help ease the financial strain
Hmm.
that's placed on incoming university students and things like that. Um, but most of the time it's like not enough to completely secure an education for someone because of the extremely high prices that comes with it.
S
Well, I think it's that, but um, we're only saying this from what we've observed, right? We don't know really anything for why College Board is doing this. We're only assuming that they're putting high price tags because that they want to, that they selflessly want to, and I'm not arguing against you, but I will say that there could be another side to this because maybe there's a specific reason that they're doing it.
Yeah, I
So-
agree. I agree. I mean, everyone needs to get paid somehow, right? Like nobody's doing this out of charity. Just
So-
that.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting that you bring this up, Rishi. And while I do agree that the College Board is at some point doing this for a profitable reason, like Garshan said, I would like to bring up the underlying reasons for the way that this whole education system is set up with college entrance exams and saving up for college and things like that, and how there's such an uneven playing field, right, between the poor and
Mhm.
rich. At least from a very early beginning in the education system. Oftentimes, the poor children in communities with not the greatest funding for their schools, and so because of that, they often tend to do worse in school, right? Because they don't really have a lot, like any opportunities, like richer children who often might go to private schools, for example. And I feel like this intensifies, right? It's kind of like a cycle, and it further sets up the rich for success, and it leaves behind all the poor Einsteins, like Yarshan said, that we'll never get to see. And I think that College Board, in some ways, it's definitely profiting off of that. But it's also losing profit because of the way that the costs of these college entrance exams are set up. And I feel like it's just, there's not like, I'm trying to figure out how to say this, but I feel like there's just not enough compensation from College Board side, from just or at least or the government side, or the education system in general.
Yeah.
There's just not enough of an even field, really.
So really the main argument here is that it's a little bit of both. So maybe it's like, College Board, we're not getting enough compromise from them. They're not really like budging that much to people who really need education. But then there's also the side that, you know, um, that they need profit, they need money. It's a large corporation. They have to proctor SAT exams. They have to maintain their website, their publicity, all that stuff. So I think the main overall point that we're getting to this argument is that College Board has both its faults and its optimistic things about it, I think.
Yeah, I agree. There's it definitely has to work and operate for its own business as well. But and while it does provide a service, I feel like there's also some negatives that it needs to take into consideration.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually want to touch on something that Shritan said earlier about the even playing field. Yeah, I agree that, in an ideal world, everyone would have an equal chance of, having education. And I do believe that education should be accessible for all people. But then at the same time, you have to keep in mind that, all right, let's say for public schools, okay, for argument's sake, let's say every public school became the exact same. They gave you all the same education, accessible to everyone. Your neighborhood doesn't matter. Your income doesn't matter. Yeah, no, everyone basically, let's just say that there was an Amazon size like scale thing, but for public schools.
Right.
Yeah.
And everyone attended those, right? That we still run into the problem of, well, first of all, everyone needs money, like
Yeah.
no one's doing things out of charity. Everyone needs to go home and, feed their families and stuff, or buy themselves a new PS5, the struggles that people go through. Anyways, where was I? Oh yeah. So everyone needs the money, right? And even if public schooling became, completely even, you
Right.
still run into the brick wall that is university tuition. Everyone has the same opportunity, they can all receive the same education, but at the end of the day, there's still a price tag on where you want to go.
That is true.
Whether that's with like, the College Board or the university you want to attend or the neighborhood you live in, like really at the end of the day, I don't see an even playing field being, feasible, especially
Right.
in America, like we're about as capitalist as it gets.
Right. Right.
Like
Yeah.
we, in terms of rights and all that, we're equal, but in terms of opportunity and things that are well linked to financial situations, I doubt we'll see any equality there without any kind of extremely, extremely radical change on like a national level.
Right.
Uh,
And I totally agree with you on this, like 100%. I feel like while we can talk about it in theory, an even playing field in education, it's not feasible, right? Like you said, without extreme government intervention, there's really no way for us to achieve that. It's just a magnification of the already large divide between the poor and rich. Um, and like you said, despite, let's say that we had an even education system, at the end of the day, you still have to potentially go to college, right? And there itself is a huge price tag there. At the end of the day, profit is profit, business is business, and the economy
Yeah.
needs to work as the economy, right? And so I feel like this is it's great to talk about in theory. Let's say it that way. But at the end of
Mhm.
the day, perhaps if history had played out a different way, maybe this wouldn't be as big of an issue. And I think it's interesting that we can talk about this because we've experienced it ourselves.
Yeah. So you're saying it's basically one of those issues that don't really are not really amendable that easily.
Yeah,
Don't really budge that easily.
without great difficulty. Yeah, and
Yeah.
um, and I feel like that's a huge problem with college, or at least one of the problems. But I'd like to touch on and move on to a specific problem with college, if you guys don't mind. It's just uh, basically the lack of transparency, right, for getting into college. It's funny to
Mhm.
think about. Let's just think about the average high school student, right? Let's say they're a senior. Let's just say he goes by the name Jeff. Okay, so Jeff is applying for college, right?
Mhm.
He's heard from his classmates that he needs to take the college entrance exam, which he's done in his junior year. He's taken a couple AP classes over the course of high school, and he's just applying for college. He's writing his college admission essays, right?
Yeah.
But he's seeing all this information across numerous websites. I'm not going to name anything specific here. He's seeing websites saying that writing longer essays are better for college. Uh, Perhaps a lower SAT score is better in a certain college, whereas a different website will say that a higher SAT score is better, right?
Mhm.
And I feel like that really shows the lack of transparency for college requirements, because there's so many different colleges out there, and each college is different, but they don't really talk about, at least in public, the what they're looking for in their students, right? In their potential students. And I feel like it just forces a lot of students to just try to achieve certain criteria to even just gain a small, minute possibility of admission. And
Yeah.
I feel like we see that even more today with how college is getting more and more expensive, and students are incentivized to get scholarships and to perform so much academically better that they're like forced by their almost like forced by the system itself to perform better rather
Mhm.
than to enjoy some of the good things about life, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so I feel like that's just a really big problem that students are having today, where they can't live as a student. They have to, be out in the world achieving this, that, and I feel like it's not a good way to live life. And I feel like that's a really huge negative of the college admission process.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
I actually
Yeah.
disagree.
Oh.
Um,
Go on.
I'm thinking of how to word this. Okay. Let me think. Okay. Let's. I mean, I don't want to say I disagree, as in I totally disagree with your thing,
Hmm.
but I see a valid argument for the other side that I'd like to bring up, and
Right.
that is if you if a college did give you exactly what it was looking for,
Hmm.
minimum AP courses, minimum SAT score, exactly what they need in an essay, blah blah blah,
Hmm.
would any student would any student, what I'm trying to say is, would any student um, try to excel or go beyond what's asked of them, or would they
That's
go
true.
for the,
That's a good.
or would they go for the bare minimum?
That's true.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
When
I'm
you're given
changing sides.
everything, when you're given everything, you can't really, you don't feel like you're doing anything. I get you.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
think about it. Like, in volunteering, for NJHS or NHS or any other organization that requires volunteer hours, by giving a minimum, like it'll say have 90 volunteer hours
Yeah.
by end of a semester or something like that, right? How
Yeah, that's
many
true.
people, I mean, I'm putting myself here in this example too, but how many people actually go out of their way to like volunteer extra because they want to, and how many people volunteer at the easiest place they can find to get a minimum of 90 hours and then move on?
In a sense, I get that you're right. I feel like, I do see the point in your argument. When you're given like requirements, it becomes a requirement more than a will within yourself to actually do something. That's an interesting point. Yep.
Yeah, and then you get to the issue of, okay, let's say a college has 100 open spots and
hmm
they have 150 students who have all met their bare requirements. What are they supposed to do now? They said that if you have these like for our in our argument's sake, they said that if you have these requirements, you get in. But there's
hmm
only 100 spots left. What do they do with the extra 50 kids, right?
Right. And
Well, in
uh,
that case, I think I would advise, like, if if you just do the bare requirements to get into a certain college, okay? Doing the minimum and not doing or not striving to do more, at least even
that's
when
a
you
good point.
know that you have certain requirements to meet, you have certain standards to meet, but if you've already exceeded that limitations and take no effort into improving more, improving you will never be more than what you are now.
Yeah, that is true. And I feel like, in a certain sense, that kind of disproves your argument. Not disproves necessarily. It shows a flaw in your argument, I say,
Hmm.
because putting out those requirements really also provides a ground, at least I'd say, for students to excel. Because while most students will just fulfill the minimum requirements, like Rishi said, there are some
Yeah.
exceptional students out there who will do more. They will do it out of their own will and passion, right? And
Yeah.
so I feel like in that sense, regardless of the actual transparency right now, I feel like with more transparency for the college admissions requirements, it gives you a better sense of the students who actually care about their education and or the major that they're trying to apply for and things like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it doesn't, because now we've come full circle. Now we're saying that the students who do more are going to be uh, prioritized more, right? And once you've
hmm
said that students who do more and who prioritize more, you've left the realm
Oh
of
wow!
these are our bare requirements. See,
Oh
now
wow!
we've come full circle. So basically, what we've done is we've said even if there were requirements for college, people would be like, I need to be better than this person. Let me do more.
Oh
And
my
they
god!
say the same thing. And now your requirements are irrelevant because nobody's doing the requirements. Everyone's doing their own thing now.
Okay,
So,
the way I see it, there really is no like solid solution to this problem. Um, wow,
yeah, there's no escape from that.
that's
It's
really
a it's a
yeah.
competition.
I I mean, I feel like that's more of a we're going into like philosophy now. I mean, this is more of like a humanity society problem, like how like the economy is managed, how competition is part of society. Wow, I mean, okay. Let's be honest. It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna be solved in our lifetimes, um, unless like society as a whole just changes.
Look at that mindset. Come on, bro. That's a loser mindset. You gotta have
You're
a
right.
better
You're right. You're right.
mindset
Yeah,
than
yeah.
that.
We gotta change it. We gotta change it. Exactly. But wow. I mean,
I
it's
mean,
crazy when you think about it through that many different angles, right? There's so many sides to the argument. You could argue for or against, and there's just I mean, I just feel like it gets you nowhere unless you can, fully argue for one side.
Well, at least it's good, establishing those arguments,
Right.
because it provides awareness. At least we know what we're dealing with. It doesn't have to necessarily be solved immediately. It's not
Right.
really
Right.
the most pressing matter of our lifetime right now, but at
Mhm.
least establishing its presence and establishing, the fact that this is certainly an issue and a problem
Right.
is good enough, I guess, to maybe change society in the slightest bit.
Right. President Biden, if you're listening, we would like you to fix this. Thank you. Um, but yeah, I certainly agree with you. Raising awareness, at the very least, is still a very potent tool.
Yeah.
Because, at, at the end of the day, not anything, like, you don't have to certainly fix an issue as long as you can let the general populace know that this issue exists and that we need to fix this, or we're not going to get
Yeah.
anywhere as a whole.
Yeah,
So yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, hi guys. This is post-recording Yadishan, in the middle of editing Yadishan, whatever you want to call me. Anyways, our discussion went on a little longer than we expected, and we don't want to take up too much time. So what we're gonna do is split the episode in half. So part 1 of the episode will be this, and next week we'll have part 2 of the episode where we finish up our discussion. So if you have anything you want to let us know in the comment section, let us know if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're listening on other platforms, send us an email at afterthebellrings.podcast@gmail.com for recommendations and questions. We hope you enjoyed this episode of After the Bell Rings, and we'll see you next time.